So with a civil case dismissal, does that all but guarantee that anything criminal is completely off the table?
The civil suit dismissal doesn't mean that by itself, Hans, but I would say that if a civil suit doesn't have any traction, given the lower standard of proof that's required in a civil suit, that there's no way it's going to go criminally. And if you look at his answer, Retzlaff's attorneys did a lot of work. They actually went and they must have filed some sort of grandma request because they got information from the Provo Police Department about her complaint. Because she said, if you recall her complaint, the civil complaint, she says, I went to the police, I made the complaint, they told me, these cases never go anywhere, you're wasting your time, which we talked, you and I, Hans, about that. That really doesn't happen. It's not the kind of thing that police would do. But they didn't file the criminal case. It's not a better case now. And what we learned about her complaint with the police was she describes her assailant as somebody she'd known since she was younger. And Retzlaff just met her the day of the event. So the complaint she made in the criminal context seems to be a different person than the person she sued. And I think that's a huge problem. And I don't see this. And we've got a great county attorney down there in Utah County, by the way, Jeff Gray. He's really good. He's not somebody that's going to walk away to help the team or something. But I don't see this going criminal at all. I think this case is over.
Wow. And so the response, when you saw that on Friday come across, and I know people were asking your opinion on that, that's I just want to stress that was an unusual response, and the details. I mean, what was it about that made you like, ooh, you don't see this very often?
For one thing, it's he had to own up to what was absolutely going to be a honor code violation.
Yeah,
and he didn't have to do that. He could have said, this didn't happen, or I'm just going to deny it for now, and we'll sort it out later. But he came right out and said, I did it. He didn't say I violated the honor code, but he admitted to conduct that violates the honor code. To me, that was surprising because we even talked with Mitch on the weekend on their show about, hey, he's just owned up to the honor code. And you've seen that, Scotty. I mean, I don't know what BYU's going to do. I don't know what he's going to do. But he kind of almost formed his own demise with the team by owning that. But in terms of the civil lawsuit, it was, looking back 4 days, genius because it got it dismissed. I mean, he said, okay, I did it. I'm going to own it. I'm going to put my future with BYU at risk. I'm going to put my future with even my scholarship at risk. But I didn't do this. I didn't commit a crime. I'll admit what I did, but not what I didn't do. And that took a tremendous amount of courage from a lawyer's perspective and from Retzlaff's perspective to say that, realizing the risk that he was putting himself through.
So with this dismissal, does that also eliminate the chance of the complainant's name being released? Will we ever know who levied this civil suit? And will there ever be any recourse for her?
That's a good question. So the case is dismissed with prejudice, and both sides took nothing. So she didn't give up anything, and he didn't give up anything. At least that's what we think. Both sides pay their own costs and attorney's fees and everything. There is no reason to think that this person will ever be exposed, that her name will ever be known. Now, there are certainly a lot of people that know who she is because Retzlaff knows her name. The other members of his team that were at the house when this occurred know who she is. Her best friend went with her to the house when they met Retzlaff. I mean, she knows who she is. So the rumor mill is going to come out. We know her initials are AG, I think. But I don't know that it's important. But that's a really good question because, and I think you and I talked about this, Hans, I've done lawsuits on behalf of individuals who are victims, but I've never used their name anonymously. They've always said, I want to bring this lawsuit. I don't care who knows who I am. I'm bringing it. This was an unusual case in that she never identified herself. But to answer your question, there's no reason why she would ever have to.
Greg Skordas kind enough to join us. You can hear him on KSL News Radio every day. When's your show running now?
9 to 12.
9 to 12, right before us. And he came right upstairs to help us talk about the situation with Jake Retzlaff. So at this point, this is pretty much a dead issue then.
Yeah, I think it's over, except for the obvious fallout that you guys are dealing with, which is what happens to the team. I mean, by all accounts, Scotty, he's a great player. And I mean, people are talking about him as going to the NFL, but I think there are 250 other teams that are saying, come on, Jake, come on down. And I looked at the NCAA rules, and I'm sure you know more about these than I do, Hans. He can transfer to another school immediately. Yeah. He doesn't lose a year of eligibility. Right. He doesn't have to redshirt. I mean, he can go to Notre Dame, UCLA,
if they both agree,
tomorrow without any harm to his NCAA career, or he can stay at BYU and possibly suffer. I think they were talking about something like a 7-game suspension. You know, that's got to be a hard decision for him because I'm sure he loves the team, but that's more than half the season.
Again, that's the rumor mill, and that's something I wanted to ask you about, Greg, because it's something that I dealt with in my 5 years at BYU was the honor code, and I had a couple of different bouts with him. And it's tough, you know, because they've got their own investigative crew and they've got their own ways of finding out things, and then they'll present information as if they're an attorney, and it feels legal, and it's horrifying. It really is. It's horrifying to be in that room. What type of legal recourse would Jake Retzlaff potentially have if he felt like the honor code was overstepping their abilities? And I don't.
I know where you're going, and I understand. Yeah,
because let's just say as attorneys don't like it. Like, wait a second, you know, this is all being dropped. Yes, he admitted, but he admitted for these reasons. And how much do you actually know? And you're going to suspend with you know, I could see attorneys getting real sticky. Good big attorneys getting real sticky with that.
I don't think they're going to get anywhere. When you play for BYU, you sign up for the honor code, and when you admit in writing, under oath, basically, which is what he did here. It wasn't under oath, but his attorney certainly said that it was true, that he committed that violation. The honor code, people, they don't even need to have a hearing, really, to establish the conduct. They can have a hearing to establish the punishment. But in terms of, I know what you're saying, but when you sign up to play for BYU, you know that. You know the honor code, and it's there. And it's not like, well, there's exceptions if you're a great player, or there's exceptions if it's a one-off and she consented or whatever. I mean, there are certain things you do when you play for a school like that, and it gives the school. It's called the honor code for a reason. It's the honor that you get to play for that particular school that doesn't apply to most other schools. Yep. But you know it when you're getting there. When you're playing at BYU. So I don't. I don't. He may have the greatest attorneys in America. If BYU wants to do something for a violation of the honor code, I don't see any recourse he would have.
Do you see, and I'm asking you to broad brush here a little bit, but to Hans' point, just to dig a little deeper into that, when you see a situation where a player is falsely accused and saying that, and I'm not talking about this specifically, but just in general, if there are false accusations, what kind of opportunities do athletes or celebrities or somebody in the public image have to try to get their name back?
You know, and I maybe we can even talk about this case a little bit, Scotty. I think he's taken some steps with that because he got the case dismissed.
Yes.
Now, and he got it dismissed by saying, I did it. I did some things that I'm not proud of, but I didn't cross the line of consent. I didn't commit a crime. Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, time tells. You think of athletes that, you know, Kobe Bryant, others that have been accused of things in their career. You know, the court of public opinion has a long memory, but if he comes out of the chute and he's an honorable person and he continues his career and does a good job and shows that he's you know, a good player and a good public servant and involved in his community, there's so many things he can do and other players can do and have done that. Yeah, I mean, this is certainly something he's going to live with for the rest of his life, and so. You know, I would, if I was talking to him, I'd say, okay, it's not going to get any worse. Now, all you can do is make your position, make your reputation, make it all better.
I guess I'm hitting it more from a legal standpoint because everywhere he's going to go now, when he plays in an opponent stadium, he's going to hear about it.
Sure.
He could probably look and say that there were financial damages to him in this new world of NIL, and there's a lot of, you know. And I don't like. I think we are becoming an overly litigious society, but yet this, you know, defamation or whatever the case might be. I don't know.
Would he ever countersue?
Yeah, exactly.
He can't.
Oh,
because they settled this on the merits. Nobody's taken anything.
Oh, okay.
So it's a good question, Scotty. how does he get something back if he was slandered, if he was misrepresented in some way? It's over. He said, my case is over, and I'm not taking anything from you, and you're not taking anything from me besides whatever happened between Friday and this morning at 6:30, which, again, I said probably was nothing. So his recourse, I know both of you asked the question, I haven't answered it very well, is just to look ahead, just to move forward with his life and his career and forget about this. It's a chapter in his life that he'll live with. And you're right. Fans, you go to certain stadiums and they're going to ding you the rest of your career, and they're going to be cruel and they're going to be awful. And he's going to have to own that and hold his head high and move forward. And frankly, I don't mean to demean anything that's happened here. It's not like he, was hooked up with a 12-year-old or, or robbed a bank or did something. He did something, and again, it's an absolute honor code violation, but he did something that happens at every university every day. And so in the court of public opinion, how much do you dislike the guy for doing something that is a violation of the honor code, but isn't a violation of a lot of our personal we were all in college and we all have friends that did things, and how much do you hate them for that? I mean, you know what I mean?
Right.
I guess I look at the conduct and say, it's not a so what, because he was at BYU and he said, I will hold myself to this standard, and he arguably didn't. But at any other school, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Greg, was this one of the hardest things in your practice of was it 40 plus years in your practice? Was this one of the hardest things, having to deal with false accusations and seeing somebody's name defamed and reputation broken?
Yeah. And I've represented public figures and elected officials and law enforcement and that. And it's hard. It's really hard. And you have to say the courts are such that, there sometimes isn't a remedy. And sometimes your remedy is just to move forward. Because every time I win a lawsuit, a criminal case especially, the first thing my client says is, now it's my turn. Now I want to do something about it.
And I want to get you my pound. I want to get my pound of flesh.
This person put me through this, and I want and you just have to say, walk away. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. There's certainly not with respect to the government, because there's governmental immunity. But even as to your accuser, even to the person that accused you of something, what's to be gained by continuing to push the envelope? And frankly, what's the remedy? I mean, I guess if for example, she came out and said, I lied, which is not going to happen because the case is over, that could be worth something. But I don't think we're ever going to get that.
I just can't even put into words the pain and anguish that I'm sure Jake Retzlaff has been through.
Sure.
And the
his family, right?
The sleepless nights, and just to try to personalize this a little bit and make it a little bit more relatable for our listeners. Jake Retzlaff's he's a kid, and he's a good kid by all means.
Right.
And having this civil suit now completely done away with, and you're looking at it like, geez, the things that were said, the split lip and the bruises and the choking and
throwing down on the bed.
The throwing down on the bed. I mean, the accusations were hellacious.
Right.
And I just think, if I'm Jake and I've got this beautiful senior year ahead of me and everything's lined up for me at BYU and my family's proud and I'm taking university trips to Israel and representing my culture, and then this.
Right.
And Greg, I can't even put into terms. And I've suffered some false accusations, and I've gone through some hard things where you've got sleepless nights.
Right.
It's not even a whisper of what Jake Retzlaff just went through. Right. I'm just, I see here, Greg, and I'm thinking, what can be done?
Yeah.
What can be done to try to ease his hurt? And maybe just having this civil suit dismissed, maybe it helps him.
Time. That's where something.
Maybe it helps him sleep at night, but it just feels so unjust what's happened here.
Right. And there will always be people, Hans, who think there was some truth to this. And we don't know. Yeah. We'll never know. There will always be some people who will look at him and say, you son of a gun, you got away with it here. You know what I mean? Like that was what you did was wrong. He'll have to live with that. That'll be a tough thing for him. I would say he's taken a big step by getting this case dismissed so quickly and with such I mean, they filed this motion at 6:30 this morning, Hans. I mean, something happened between Friday and today where she and her attorney said, we need to get this over with. And again, Scotty, where we started this, I don't think it was a fat check that she got.
And again, I think that's what a lot of people assume. And privately, I did as well. I thought, okay, well, money exchange hands, and everybody's like, okay, we get this number and we're going to dismiss it. But that very well, it could not be the case. Do you anticipate that there are a lot of NDAs signed on this, or?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is over. Nobody can talk about it.
Nobody can talk about it.
That's a great question. That's a great question. I would say whatever happened between Friday and this morning, there was some signatures saying this is over. You don't talk. Retzlaff, you don't disclose her name. You don't talk about this.
Yeah.
And AG, whoever you are, you don't say, but he really did this and he really did that. You're done. And if there was an exchange of money, which again, I doubt, no one can ever disclose that.
So does that mean, like, for instance, we're Big 12 Media Day in 10 days. We're headed out to Big 12 Media Days, Kalani and the entire stuff. So nobody, will the coaching staff be able to comment on?
That's a good question, Hans. They're not part of the non-disclosure.
Okay,
they can talk about it all they want, and you can bet they will. And the administration at BYU probably will if there's an honor code violation. And perhaps some of his teammates can say, we feel bad for Jake. So non-disclosure is limited to the parties, AG and Retzlaff, and of course their attorneys. So to go to your question, they can't talk about what happened behind the scenes, but other people can surmise, just as we are right now, about what happened.
Okay.
Other people can come in and say, boy, that was too bad what happened to him. Or some people could say, he got away with something that he shouldn't have. They can opine all they want. But in terms of what really happened on November 23rd, 2023, at his apartment in Provo, no one will ever be able to talk about that because no one knows except two people, and they're both now bound by an agreement not to discuss it.
But if we're down at Big 12 Media Day and we're talking to a player and the player says, yeah, Jake told me that this happened, and that's why it got settled, that would be conflicting with the NDA.
No.
If he said that Jake told him.
If he said that Jake told him after today, after this agreement was signed, that's a good question. If he talked about it a month ago, there was no non-disclosure at that time. That's a great question. Without getting into the weeds too much, from today forward, Jake cannot talk about it, period.
Okay. Well, Greg, we appreciate it, man. Thanks
Very
for
good
your
stuff,
help.
Greg.
And you talk to us in a way that we're 5 years old, and it helps make us make sense of this thing.
Sense. Thanks,
no,
Scott.
it did. You did a great job. Thank you so much for your help. And again, you can catch Greg over on KSL News Radio every day from 9 to 12. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.